It's been a while since I've done a video in the selfie format, but I was reminded recently by someone who has watched all of my videos that there might actually be some inspirational material here. So I'm going through another transition right now in my life, which is happening at all levels: the material, metaphorical, and physical and metaphysical levels. It involves physically moving living spaces, as well as mining my own story in preparation for a solo theater performance that I'm creating. And it also involves reviewing what I've done, my body of work, and looking at what it means to have a portfolio. And that's something that I just realized yesterday in doing a review of my art portfolio, that in fact all of my work, including the coaching work and all of the various expressive arts and healing modalities that I've studied, are all part of my portfolio. And I never quite thought of it that way. And I'm going to be playing with that. So those are the main transitions, which is enough. Thank you very much. But I remember I was furiously making videos 9 years ago when I was going through another very transitional period in my life. And I think that was bigger because it just really felt like a huge chasm that I was crossing, whereas now it's just another creek crossing on the trail of life. But it's big whenever we move physical locations, and the kind of review that I'm doing of my life to mine the story that I want to tell is also very big work. It's very big emotionally too, to go through and acknowledge what you've done, what you've been through, what hurt, what felt great, what you want to create more of, what you want to let go of. And all of that's happening for me at all these levels. I'm also claiming the unclaimed parts of myself as I let go of what I'm ready to let go of. And it's all it's beautiful, it's difficult, but it also is the only thing that transforms us, are these processes, transitioning, moving through these difficult things. And I think the reason I wanted to make this video was to share a story, or the impact I had from a story I heard the other night, which is, in broad strokes, the story of a woman who has not given herself permission to have, express, and take up space in the world with her internal feelings. And we have many different words for those internal feelings. Some of us call it our authentic self. Some of it's our soul. Some of us call it the essential self, the true self, whatever we call it. When we've become aware of that place, we know what we're talking about. So use whatever words work for you. But imagine that you lived a life where there was what was allowed, the official version of you that was well behaved and compliant, that was allowed and got all the praise and approval and belonging. And really, that was how you got not interfered with, in a way. That as long as you showed your official self and the feelings that fit into that picture, you were fine. And in fact, you were appreciated. But that you also knew about a layer of yourself that existed, and it was very real for you on the inside. But you know, and you knew at the time, that if you expressed it, it would break all the rules and break open the official picture that had been constructed around you, and that everyone was relying on you to keep together. And you learned through observation that it wasn't going to work for you to bring those feelings out. And yet they were undeniably real to you, and they had to find a home, or you weren't going to survive it, emotionally or physically. And so you searched for outlets, and these outlets were often in the expressive arts: singing, dancing, poetry, painting, drawing. And these provided you a space for those internal feelings to move and find a form outside of you that could be a place where they lived and where you could appreciate them, and they could be free and have their own life that they deserved in the world. And yet, they also did not fit into the official picture that you knew at another level you had to comply with in order to survive. And so imagine that you grow up to become an adult, and you continue to enjoy your expressive outlets. And yet you have another layer, your official layer of your life, your professional life, or maybe you're helping others through your professional credentials and your training. And you still have this internal world of feelings that lives behind closed doors, in private, never appearing when you appear in your official capacity, which is to the entire outer world of your experience. And so you end up putting all of those internal feelings, including your difficult feelings, your pain, your anger, your personal experience with source and spirit and nature and mythology and your ancestors, and you put it on canvases that are huge, bigger than you, and go from floor to ceiling, and they find a space to live and breathe and be in the world. And the only place you're allowed now, even as an adult, to place those paintings is inside a locked room that no one sees except you. Your own completely private space that luckily you have learned to carve out at this point in your life. But still, you feel tremendous waves of shame about ever admitting to anyone that you have these things that have such huge reality and life in you that they take up beautiful canvases, floor to ceiling, one after another, a series. And yet when faced with the opportunity or the invitation to reveal them in any way, even by description, to an audience, you're overcome with the voices of the official picture that would fall apart if you did it, of the family that would fall apart if you did it, of the public image that would fall apart if you did it, of all of the people that would be disappointed or just not know what to do if you did it. That even though those voices come from decades ago when you were just a little girl, they still live inside you as a sort of police officer on what you're allowed to do and the space that you are allowed to take in the world. And imagine then having not only the opportunity and invitation, but the commitment to take up just that space, an entire stage, to yourself and to your expression and to your version of your experience, your own internal feelings, your own perspective, the world and the truth as you know it, and giving that airtime in physical space in front of a physical audience. That story, which is partly mine and partly someone else's and partly maybe yours and partly all of ours, reminded me why it's essential and not recreational for me to make art. And by making art, I know what I mean by that, and it may mean something different to you, but I want to always, when I say that, make clear to myself by saying that making art does not mean selling art. It does not mean having my art in a museum. It does not mean having my art in a gallery. It does not mean people liking my art. It means me making. And that's that very intimate and special relationship that I have with myself as I am in creative process. No matter what the medium is, whether it's a blank page, a blank canvas, a silent space in which I put sounds, voice, and music, a stage on which I perform, or a blank computer screen on which I type words. Doesn't matter. When I'm making my art, I know what that means. I know what I'm asking of myself, the state that I allow myself to go to through practice and play and allowing in a certain attitude that I take on. I have come to know that. And it has been a hard-earned knowing. This is the last, 9 years, but also the previous 33 years of life, experiences, traumas, triumphs, achievements, transitions, heartbreaks, and experiments, and choices, and learning, and mentoring, and asking, and receiving, and beginning again and again and again, and returning again and again and again to the place where things begin, which is in creative process. And why is it essential for me, and why did that story remind me of it? Because everything around this word healing that I've been talking about, and creativity and transformation, which I've already also been talking about, everything is about that repair of that experience of the little girl who believed in her role of holding together the official picture, of meeting the needs of the adults in her life that were real. But then that little girl growing up and becoming a woman who knows herself and who knows what her internal feelings are, and makes the choice and takes the responsibility to claim the space and to deny, not to deny in terms of just stuffing down, but to stand in the face of the voice that she has internalized that tells her, no, your internal feelings shame the family. Your internal feelings are not worthy. Your internal feelings are not good enough to be seen. They're too much. They're too big. Whatever it is that we've taken on as littler, younger versions of ourselves, growing up, growing into ourselves, beginning to take responsibility starts with taking action that will repair or at least transform those old feelings. And so it's essential because I choose to grow up. And the day I grew up, I started to grow up, is when I began to grieve all that I had not experienced because I still held on to those old policing beliefs, and I still held myself hostage to them. So my repair process is every single time I dare to have the audacity to take a blank page for myself and take another blank page and another blank page and another blank page, and to keep discovering what's there, what's possible, what's inside me, what could come through me if I let it. That's how I'm growing up. And I also experience the profound transforming and healing effect of being in the presence of others who are doing the same. And so this is my offer to you, that if any of this story feels like your story, feels like your time to grow up in your way for yourself, to take responsibility for releasing yourself from the command of those voices that have taken over your right to appear and take up space for your feelings to exist. Let's talk. Let's see if there's an opportunity for us to support each other in our transformation. And that's the value of coaching. That's the value of connecting, finding people who can support us in hearing more of our own truth and living more into it is beyond gold. And I hope that just sharing this helps you to identify what's in you that wants to be seen.